We are talking The Exorcism of Saint Patrick, written and directed by Quinn Armstrong. Now, this is a series of one of 3 movies that have been produced that I believe have some type of social message in it, but packaged as a horror film. I've only seen this one. They're not consecutive movies. They don't follow on from each other. They're just a series of 3 movies as a collection. So what's this one all about? Well, this focuses on a clergyman, a pastor, who has been tasked to take this young man and effectively pray the gay away. His parents are deeply religious, and they want this clergyman to treat their son and not be gay anymore, effectively. So this clergyman takes this young lad to a kind of cabin in the woods, and they go through a variety of tasks and things like that to try and convince this young man that he is no longer gay. Now, the pressure starts to mount. This young man, who they're both characters called Patrick, he's feeling humiliated, bullied, and ultimately things take a dark turn. And then it's the aftermath of that may well involve a supernatural tale of revenge. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So, let us discuss. So, to be clear, this movie is clearly marketed to be a horror movie, and there are some elements that I would certainly say constitute horror scenes, but this is mostly a drama. And even when the horror elements are here, you could arguably say they're either psychological horror or maybe even a haunting. Nothing really to do with an exorcism, I would say, just to make it clear here. But let's talk about what works in this movie's favour. The biggest thing for me that I can say on a plus side on this movie is I think the acting is very strong. In particular from our 2 leads, the guy who plays the young man and the guy who plays like this preacher, this pastor. I'm not religious, so I don't know the exact title of this guy. Especially the young lad who is the gay guy. I thought the acting was very, very strong, and you know, if you weren't knowing this was marketed as a horror film, you would just think this is some type of drama. But I thought the acting was very solid, very believable. I totally could kind of see the pressure that this young man was kind of on, his bullying and how it's affecting him, his suicidal tendencies, and also you can kind of see that when the shoe's on the other foot, this pastor who kind of thinks he is helping, but he is sort of looking at it from somewhat selfish means as well. But I thought, nonetheless, the acting here was solid from both characters. And let me be clear, this is a 90-odd minute movie, and the first hour is really nothing to do with maybe other than psychological horror. It's just a drama. It's only the last act, really, that we start to get any type of horrific elements in the movie. So a lot of this weight is carried by the acting because it does feel more like a drama for that most part. And it is strong. It's a compelling performance by both actors. We get a few kind of other characters pop up here and there, but the movie is mainly carried by these 2, and it's very well done. And they're having a couple of other movies that I have seen which kind of have a similar vibe to this. There was one called Parable, which actually has a very, very similar plot, sort of gay conversion therapy leading to exorcism. And I actually thought this was just like that movie kind of just retitled. There was also one called Godless, which dealt with the kind of the church being overzealous in regards to you know, this type of well, not really the same situation, but again, the church certainly in a negative light. So there's this pushback, I would say, in the recent years against the sort of the church, obviously with various scandals and things. So, you know, we're seeing it mirrored in movies and TV shows and things like that. So the performances are strong. The dramatic direction is believable. The horror elements, not particularly massively strong. We'll come on to that. But because it's so horror light until we get to the third act, obviously it does seem tonally quite different when we get to that sort of third act. And there are a couple of, you know, decent kind of use of imagery here and some kind of creepier moments. So, but the movie really shouldn't be watched as a horror movie first. It's certainly more of a drama for horror fans. Let me put it like that. Let's talk about what doesn't work. I mean, as I've kind of alluded to here, the actual horror elements here are very subtle and not particularly sort of at the forefront of this movie's agenda, so to speak. When we do get to our third act, and again I'm going to be spoiler free here, even the horrific stuff or the horror elements that we see on screen are on the milder side. So it's a little disappointing, I think, if you are a fan of horror movies and you want a experience which is going to be a typical sort of horror film. It really isn't like that. Now, you might say, well, it's a drama. This movie really shouldn't be talked about in regards to horror. So let's talk about the drama. The acting is strong. But the narrative seems kind of one note. There's an hour of this sort of conversion therapy, so to speak, and it was done very well. But I didn't really feel the narrative had a huge amount to offer outside of that. And then we get to this kind of third act, and it's this tonal shift which feels at odds with the first two acts. I didn't really feel it kind of completely blended together. And then we have the acting outside of, and I think this is more to do with the script, if I'm honest, some of the kind of the character choices and the way these characters are portrayed at certain points when we're not talking about these two guys doing this conversion therapy, I didn't think were particularly realistic, particularly when you compare it to the far more kind of grounded reality of these two guys, you know, having their back and forth. When we have our pastor talking to like his boss or someone else at the beginning of the movie, I just didn't think it was as strong as in regards to the acting or the way these characters are written. Again, I'm trying to be vague in regards to spoilers here. So, you know, it has its moments, I think, of being a very good drama movie. It's not really a horror movie I would recommend if you're wanting it more of a horror movie, though. If you want a good drama but you're a horror fan and you just wanted something different, but you still want a tinge of horror, then maybe this. But if you want to watch it as a horror primarily, this really isn't the movie for you, as I feel it would be somewhat disappointing. You would probably say this movie was going to be slow or boring, because the movie's not really interested in being a horror film, if we're kind of being completely honest here. And I have to say as well, again, this is going to be me attempting to be spoiler free here. It's kind of hinging at, so to speak, that there may have been other individuals that have been wronged, and I would have thought the pastor at this point would be taking some different actions. Is all I'm going to be saying. Again, vague, I know, but yeah, you would have thought that as grounded as this movie's trying to be, when things are revealed, you're thinking, would this guy be doing this still? I don't think he would. But anyway, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 because the acting is strong. The kind of the social commentary is interesting, but I don't really think it works as a horror film. And I think the dramatic elements are well played, but ultimately I think they don't really form part of a larger narrative that is particularly interesting. They're just kind of like a bit of commentary, but then they don't really form much of a story exactly. So that's a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.